Good evening, this is B. Nagesh. I'm a retired Additional Secretary and Team IAS Network. So today we do the topic for discussion is General Studies Paper 2 Governance, Role of the Civil Service. The role of the civil service, it is a unit by itself in public administration, Paper 1 and Paper 2, starting from recruitment, training, the grievance councils, civil service reforms. It is a big chapter by itself in public administration. So coming to this particular question, role of the civil service. First we read the question. Political interference, outdated procedures, mixed record of policy implementation characterize the functioning of the civil service. So the civil service is noted by three important characteristics as per the question. Political interference in their working, outdated procedures which the civil service follows, mixed record of policy implementation. Is it correct to blame the shortcomings in governance only on the civil service? Is the civil service alone responsible for bad governance? So this particular question, as usual, we go with an introduction. Then we show what reforms the civil service has brought in from independence. Then what are the issues of concern? Why the civil service is not able to perform effectively? Within the introduction, the civil service is an agency of policy implementation. So the policies are made by the political executive, that is the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers at the center, or the Chief Minister and Council of Ministers in the state. So the political executive prepares the policy for implement, and the implementation is done by the civil service. Now, who prepares the policy? Obviously, the political executive prepares the policy, but the inputs are given by the civil service. So, the role of the civil service in a democracy would be first guiding the political element on policy formulation, second, implementing the policies of the government. So, when the civil service is implementing the policies of the government, there are certain principles which guide its functioning. First one is impartiality. By impartiality, I mean the civil servant serves all governments alike, irrespective of whichever government is in power. His duty is to serve the government. When I say serve the government, I mean implementing the policies of the government. That is all. You cannot question the rationale of the policy. Anonymity, the civil servant remains in the background. Any credits go to the minister, that is the political executive takes the credit. The civil servant is in the background, he is anonymous. Neutrality, by neutrality again we mean not identifying himself with any political party or any pressure group. He is neutral in his functioning. So impartiality, anonymity, neutrality are the hallmarks of the civil service. The civil service is the permanent executive. The chief minister and the council of ministers in the state, or the prime minister and council of ministers in the center, constitute the political executive. Now, if you see the general working of the civil service since independence, so it is not that we can say that the civil service has not performed at all. Conduct of general elections, this is the greatest contribution of the civil service. You see the army of civil servants who are responsible for the peaceful conduct of elections. We've had so many parliamentary elections, state assembly elections, the elections to the local bodies. All this are conducted by a team of trained civil servants, and it goes to the credit of our parliamentary democracy that we have successfully conducted so many elections as compared to the neighboring countries which are in a state of dictatorship or which are seized by military power. Combating poverty. The civil servant, whether at the grassroots or at the district level or at the state level or planning the policy at the central level, they're all responsible for making programs for combating poverty and ultimately implementing the same at different levels, at the state level, district level, the taluk level, and the panchayat level. Nutritional security. So in the background of the Poshan Abhiyan, how much work is being carried on in the name of nutritional security. And also, combating poverty is a part of the SDGs which we are committed. Systemic reforms since 1991. The era of liberalization, privatization, and globalization has been, the policies regarding this have been successfully implemented. How now we have a robust private sector, which is, and the policy of liberalization, how it has helped the economy achieve great heights, and how we're able to perform well in a global environment. All this goes to the functioning of the civil service. Disaster management, plans for disaster management, which include rehabilitation of the people affected by disaster, then resettlement, then giving them alternative source of employment. All this is done by the civil service. E-governance initiatives for service delivery. A lot of e-governance initiatives have been launched, you can say that many of the e-governance initiatives have been the brainchild of civil servants. One particular project I can remember relating to Karnataka, it is called Bhumi. So this was a revolutionary e-governance initiative which provided for digitization of land records, mapping of land records. Then at one place you get details regarding to all government properties. So these e-governance initiatives have done a lot in promoting service delivery and are citizen-centric in nature. Inclusive governance, schemes for the vulnerable groups. See, by schemes for the vulnerable groups, I not only mean the schemes for the SC, ST, OBC, minorities, women, the senior citizens, and the differently abled. See here, when I'm speaking of inclusive governance, I remember in Karnataka how innovative schemes, see for instance, there is a category called the learning disabled. It much before the provisions of the Persons with Disabilities Act 2016 came about, we could work out a scheme wherein the student with learning disability is treated on par with the student with visual disability, visual impairment. See, in any exam, the candidate with visual impairment gets a scribe. Now, we introduced a similar concept like this. Of course, this is there in the new act also, the Persons with Disabilities Act 2016. A scribe is given to a student who has learning disability. So the scribe, and the most beautiful thing of the act is the candidate can choose the scribe of his choice. So all this is revolutionary. I mean, out of box solutions, out of box thinking. This has helped the principle of the concept of inclusive governance becoming more fruitful. India is the only country where we have schemes for different sectors of the vulnerable groups. So this is inclusive democracy, inclusive governance. Now, is it correct to state that the shortcomings in governance can be put only on the civil service? See, it is difficult to say that the civil service is alone responsible for bad performance. So you take the first important issue, inefficiency and corruption. See, this corruption is rooted in the system. So long as the political element is there, and so long as there are people willing to pay, so long as we speak of the politician criminal bureaucrat nexus, so long as this system, so long as this trilogy operates, the system will be noted for corruption. Inefficiency. is a matter affecting the performance of the civil service. So in this, what the government wants to do is to introduce a system of periodic training to improve their efficiency. Outdated procedures. See, now the civil service, the bureaucracy is trained to follow procedures rather than thinking of the outcome. So insistence on procedures without giving due importance to the outcome is a severe drawback in the functioning of the bureaucracy. Political interference, it is due to the parliamentary form of government in which the minister heads the department, the minister is responsible. Ultimately, the Prime Minister and Council of Ministers are responsible to the lower house of Parliament and indirectly to the people. The civil servants is not responsible to anybody. So some amount of political interference is there, but political interference in India has stretched right from the starting from the time of recruitment to transfers to promotions. So that is one thing which we have to live with. Weeding out the non-performers and rewarding the performers. This is one important recommendation of the second ARC. See, the second ARC speaks of protecting the honest civil servant. Now, who is an honest civil servant? An honest civil servant is one who is allowed to perform. So, the system should have certain inbuilt mechanisms wherein we can weed out the non-performers. I mean, when I refer to non-performers, it is not necessarily people at the bottom levels of the bureaucracy. I mean, at the top level of the bureaucracy, where they are not functioning. So they have to be weeded out. Of course, now the government has brought out, the DOPT has brought out a set of rules wherein people who complete 25 years of service, they will be taken up for screening. What I suggest is even before that, when you see, for instance, the second ARC says promotion should not be automatic. There should be training. The candidate who is to be promoted has to be trained. I remember some time back the DOPT had brought about a set of rules stating that candidates who are working the state civil service, officers in the state civil service, when they become eligible for promotion to the IAS, they have to appear in a preliminary examination and interview, and only if they qualify in the exam and the interview, they will be recommended to the IAS, empanelment into the IAS. Unfortunately, due to the political element and due to the strong lobby of the state governments, this scheme did not come through. So, rewarding the performance. Rewarding the performers is another way in which you can motivate honest civil servants to work. A major issue of concern would be non-implementation of the recommendations of the second ARC. Second ARC has given so many reports on improving the functioning of the civil service. It has spoken of capacity building, training, and it also says you set up national institutes of public administration. So these national institutes will see that candidates at the degree level itself will get motivated to enter the civil service, and this will help get better quality of civil servants. Unfortunately, the recommendations of the second ARC are still in cold storage. So summing up the discussion, I would say that the civil service per se cannot be blamed on shortcomings in governance. Several inbuilt factors are there which are preventing the civil service from functioning. I told you, outdated procedures, political interference, then a system wherein the honest civil servant is not protected. Unless the recommendations of the second ARC are taken up on a war footing, reforms in the civil service cannot be carried on to their logical extent. Thank you.